There is power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Break every chain. Break every. We just want to say a pleasant good afternoon to those of you tuning in live on Global 99.5, Cable TV 974. Truly, there is power in Jesus to break every chain. And so whatever the chains are you face with today, truly you can have that power that is able to break the chain, whatever the chain is. And so with that, I want to welcome those of you this wonderful Sunday afternoon. I'm looking on the screen. As a matter of fact, we need to get our guests, and I don't know what happened to our guests. They must forget the time. But nevertheless, for those of you who are now on the radio, those who are on the Cable TV 974, those who are joining us by Facebook, by Zoom, or YouTube, all the various social media, I take this opportunity to welcome you today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. I begin by offering condolences to all those persons who are in mourning of the loss of loved ones. We remember Pastor John Carey, who lost his wife. And so we want to also remember others whom funeralized individuals yesterday as well as today. So we want to also join those individuals in offering condolences to those persons and pray with the family. And as usual, today we begin with what we call Moments with Christ with Dr. Leslie McMillan. Usually we recognize that the transformation, we call it a true transformation, takes place when one has this relationship with Christ. And so Dr. Leslie McMillan, my mentor, spiritual mentor, is one who's going to share with us right now 5 minutes for what we call Moments with Christ. Dr. McMillan, welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, my friend and colleague. It is so wonderful to be on this afternoon and to join you and your co-host, as usual, on this tremendous community-orientated program. And it is really apropos to have our minds reflecting on Jesus Christ prior to looking at any other subject matter, because in Christ Jesus, we can find the solution, we can find the strength, we can find the opening up of our minds to be able to understand any particular matter.
Yes.
And as I understand it today, we're looking at the fallout from the absence of fathers and the male image, and we can apply what happens when things are not normal to any area of our lives. But what I'd like to say in this 5-minute period is that if we maintain a personal and intimate faith relationship with Christ, he himself, through his Spirit, will be able to sustain us under any circumstances and when anything may be at a minimum, be it love, be it a friend, be it finances. In other words, Jesus is all things to all people under every circumstances. And the reason for that is who he is and what he did for us and his love for us, his miracle working power. And if we trust that, then all other things will fall into place. And so I ask each who are on with us right now, each one who may be here, that we reflect on our relationship to Christ. Spend time with him, talking to him, surrendering to him. He responds, and he will bring peace. He will bring wisdom and knowledge. In fact, he uses this program to bring information to individuals and who may be trusting in him. Then when we hear the information, then we have the strength and power to do it. So I'm just giving you the practical value of this 5-minute period on this program, and then the practical value of having Christ in our lives all the time. And further to that, when our sojourn here on this earth, on the conveyor belt of time, comes to an end, connected to Christ, we will now be connected to eternity. And there's no other way for that to happen. And so this afternoon, whatever we may hear and whatever we are facing after the day, let us hear it and face it in Christ Jesus. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much too, Dr. Macmillan. I join you in those sentiments that whatever we do, he must be first. Thank you for that opportunity. Those of you tuning in on cable TV, Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, just want to say to you, yesterday was I celebrated 58. Wow, the big 58. So truly Christ has been good to me for those 58 years. Wow.
Congratulations. You're coming up. You're coming up to us. Congrats.
Oh, yes, thanks. 2 years away from being a senior citizen. Yeah, so, and I had a wonderful time. So I just wanted to share that with those of you listening. But today, we want to once again share, we had an event, Prison Fellowship at the park in Montel Heights. We had a community event just yesterday where we gave out some bags and items to some 200 children, along with the adults. Also provided assistance with just a minor snack feeding. And it was just a part of the community outreach for Prison Fellowship. And so I spent that part of the day with that. But folks, today, it's not about me or anything as usual. We got our spiritual, and we recognize the challenges with our fathers in the home. I see one of the guests on I can recognize by name. That's Kendrick Dames. What am I going to do? Ken, maybe you may need to call the rest, find out. I don't know if any of our other guests on. I don't see them by name. I hope they ain't forget. Right? We have a number of persons to continue with part 2 from last week. And that is Denver Pratt, Shelton Burrows, Drexel Deal, as well as Kendrick Dames, as we talk about absentee fathers in the home. And we know that these gentlemen shared the experience of an absentee father. And also they talked about the gang culture, and perhaps today they may be able to share some solutions. They may be able to say how to know or to spot if your child is a part of the gang based on some of the activities that they got involved early, or perhaps they'll be able to share some things that you can do from a human perspective to prevent your children from becoming a part of the gang activity. And so I see my co-host, she's not on yet. And so I want to introduce to you my friend, Shelton Apple Burrows. Shelton, you can introduce your guests and y'all can talk and share. By then, Jackie should reach, she'll take over with the questions. If not, I'll ask a few questions and then I'll just allow participating audience to ask their question as we talk about absentee father. We talked about the negative impact or consequences of fathers absent in the home. Mr. Shelton Burrows, sir.
Yes, good evening, Bahamas, and good evening, Mr. Dave Williams.
Good evening, sir.
Yes. I just would like to say that, we want to give special thanks to fathers who would have stayed around and fathers who would have stepped to the plate to be fathers. And we want to give thanks to stepfathers, you know what I mean, who would have made an impact into some child life they would have helped with the mother with, but absentee of fathers brings a lot of grief and pain to many kids who wasn't able to grow up with their father. I just been to the prison last week, and I saw one of my good friends, and I remember when he was 16 and I was 19, and two other persons were charged with us. He went to the boys and national school, and we went to prison. The three of us went to prison. And Brother Dave Williams and the Bahamas, out of four of us, three of us had something in common. One, he was the only one who had his father.
Yes.
But his father didn't live in the home with him. But
Okay.
he had his father. The other three of us, we didn't have our father.
Okay.
And two of us didn't know our father. And these are sad realities as to what take place into when you're seeing a lot of young males lashing out, a lot of young males angry and hurting and cannot find their identity or cannot find their way. It's really because they are not connected to their father.
Did you dropped off?
Yeah. No, I turn it back over to you.
Okay. So Ken, I noticed Ken is on. So we left Ken share. I don't know if Drexel on, Denver on. We talk about the absentee of fathers in the home. We talk about the gang culture, how to spot or how to know if your young child is involved in gang activities, or what could be done to prevent our young children from getting involved in gang activities based on your experience. Go ahead, Ken.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon,
Good
Mr. Buzz. Good afternoon, everybody that's on, everybody that's listening. Like I would have stated yesterday, absentee fathers, my position still stands. And like I said, not yesterday, last week, pardon me, the family unit was designed for mother, father, children. And anytime either one of those is removed from the equation, I think that's where we run into our problems, particularly with the father being removed, that we are seeing that we are on this particular subject of absentee fathers. I personally don't know if we have really examined and look at how important it is for fathers to be in the home and examine the impacts of them not being in the home. I would have grew up in a community, Elizabeth Estates, and I can safely assume about 70 or 75% of the homes were without fathers. And I can tell you, just based on that, it as I watched it, the homes that had both parents, that had the fathers there was a stark difference in terms of the way that house was run, the way even the kids, even the way they turned out. Now, all of them, it's not a perfect science. All of them didn't walk the straight and narrow. But the fact remains that numbers has proven that when the father's in the home,
Yes.
their there tends to be a real difference, especially with the children. And like I said, I'm not one. I don't even know what it is. I don't think I've never slept under the same roof with both parents, never in my life. So I don't even know what that is or what it feels like. You know, as I become a man, I look, and as I see mother, father, children, you know, sometimes I wonder what that is like, how the kids feel. I can imagine that there's a sense of security, and you know, that's still amazing to me. You know, I still kind of yearn for that, you know, because it is not the way. Fathers not being in the home was not the way that it was designed, or any parent for that matter, you know. So I think we need to really examine the impacts of absentee fathers. And I think as we begin to delve into this conversation, I think we would really begin to unearth a lot of things that, you know, we take for granted that really adds up into bigger situations. They start really small, but at the end of the day, it has devastating consequences.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Thanks for sharing. As we're talking about absentee fathers, I'm just checking to see if any of our guests is Drexel on. I don't see Denver. I don't see Drexel. Oh, I see Denver. Denver, welcome on. Happy.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Good afternoon to you, Dave, and to your listening audience.
Good evening. I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just tuning in. Just hooking up. I was trying to listen to what the brother was saying. I caught the latter part of it. You had a question?
Right. So remember, we're talking about absentee fathers in the home. We're talking about the gang culture, how to know if your child is in a gang, or or the positive solution. What could we do to prevent our children from joining and becoming a part of gangs? Because remember, one of the things I'm sure you and I would agree, based on our work in prison ministry, is we recognize that quite a number of these men grew up without father. You yourself have shared how you grew up without a father. I grew up without a father in the home. We know all of the other stories. And so that's what we're talking about today. And you could perhaps share on that. Then I'm going to let Jackie take it over. She may have some questions, and then we can open it up to the audience.
Yeah. One of the things, Dave, I believe when we're talking about young men and why they gravitate to the gang is because one of the things I think is a sense of belonging. And what's lacking, I think, in our country is that our young men are trying to find love in all the wrong places, if I can put it like that. And so if they don't get it, the real love, they're going to find some false love somewhere else. And one of the reasons young men join gang is they want to be validated. And for me, I think a sense of lacking identity is very important, because if you don't actually know your identity, then you would probably link in with anyone else's identity. Once you realize that your identity comes from the creator who created you, joining a gang will be almost a no-no. And I believe that's one of the things moving forward in our country, especially when it comes to our young men, is for them to identify what is their true identity. Once you realize that, you don't need to try to be like nobody else, like they used to say back in the days, be like Mike. You know who you are. God created you for a specific plan and purpose. So for me is the young men knowing their true identity, very important moving forward when we talk about the gang culture and a sense of belonging. You actually get your identity from your father. And so if the father is absent and in the home, there is a chance that the young man might never really find out what his true identity is. Someone might tell him his false identity, and he goes along with it, and he rides with it, and before time is too late that he discover what his true identity is. And then that's where the challenge is. So for me, I think that's one of the reasons that we find young men want to gravitate to these gangs. They want to feel a part of something. They missing something. They're looking for something moving forward.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to welcome my co-host, Jackie. Jackie, welcome to the program Transforming Lives. So I turn it over to you, okay?
Happy Sunday, everyone. It is great to be here. Actually, I was just enjoying the conversation. Just would like to zoom in on one of the things I've been just reading this whole matter of absentee fathers or absent fathers. And so I want to ask a question, and then we could dive more into in terms of some of the causes. But just as we look back over our society, someone said on the last radio program about the increase. So I want to know, who do you think should be blamed, or who should be held responsible for absentee fathers? Just I wonder if our guests can talk a little bit about that responsibility, because when we can look it boldly in the face and confront it, then we can come up, I think, with more corrective ways of dealing with it. Is it a societal problem? Is it a mother's problem? A father's problem? Children problem? Who should be held responsible for this whole issue of absentee father? Any one of our guests? Well, I'd like each one of our guests to answer it. Who's on the call?
Yes, I'll go first. This is Shelton Burrows.
Hi, Shelton. Great. Welcome to the
Yes.
show again.
Yes. Hi, and thank you so much. I would like to say that the father himself has to be held accountable. And in some cases, the mother. Because for me, my father wasn't in my life. And one of the challenge is that what I come to discover is that in the last 60 years, a lot of our males would have had multiple homes. And in some cases, they was married and they couldn't assign for the children they have out of marriage. And I was one of them, and who experienced that. And the sad reality is that in some cases, the mothers know what they're involved in. And this is what you call bad family planning. And I think that family planning should be a very critical subject in school, because when a child is born, they are not a teddy bear, they are not a toy, they're not something you could put on the side and put battery in when you feel like playing with them and put them up inside the ceiling. They are a living being. And if they do not get the proper nurturing, the proper guidance, they will become a burden to society. And this is why I very much like to talk about absentee fathers, because a lot of my friends who would have died in the gang and who are in prison because of the gang culture and the gang life is really, the gang is just the end product. If we was to see why they get there, it hurts my heart. And this is something what I say for myself, that if I have any children, I wanted to be in their life, because the pain for not having a father in your life is painful. And like my brother Ken said earlier, he don't even know how it feels to live in a home with both parents. I don't know how that feels. I can't even imagine how that feels.
That's
And
it.
so,
That's a good
yes.
That's a good point.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I'll let the other brothers then continue.
Okay, go right ahead.
Ms. Shaki, I think that is a very, very good question. Who is to be blamed? You know, and I'm going to stick to my premise of mother, father, children. Anytime when something has a design and we go around that, there's always going to be consequences. And I'm going to draw an example from that. For me, nothing in this world will ever stop me or will cause me to be an absentee father. Now, that's just me, right? That's my resolve.
Yes.
Everybody may not have that, right? But so I'm going to tell you of a personal matter that happened with me.
Yeah, nothing like a testimony. So yes.
When a husband and his wife has a child, by the laws of the Bahamas, that is completely different as opposed to when a boyfriend and a girlfriend has a child. So when I had my oldest daughter, it was out of wedlock. Me and her mother, we didn't work out. She took her. I went to the courts, and that's when I understood that if you're not married, the laws of the land, automatically the mother has all rights to the child, which I was completely unaware of, right? And which I think in some cases it's unfair.
Yeah.
But that was something that I had to work through. That was my resolve, right? A lot of men may not have that resolve. And I know a lot of brothers, they go through situations like this. Them and the mother, they're not married. They go and they have a child. They break up for whatever reason. The mother wants to be manipulative, wants to keep the child away. The father's coming around. He wants to do things for the child, but she's holding back. He goes to the court. He finds out this such and such is the case. And, you know, some men just don't have that in them to even continue on. And for some reason, they get discouraged. And in a lot of cases, and I'm not saying in all cases, and I'll even go further and say, I don't even think that that's an excuse, because it wasn't an excuse for me. But that is one of the main reasons that you see a lot of men are absent in the lives of their children. It is, and I told you, I had a rude awakening, and I was like, they said, there's no way. And you go before the courts, and it's almost impossible, even if the mother's unfit, it's almost impossible for you to get a court in the Bahamas to give that father custody of the child, but you don't have to have custody, right? So to your question, there's something that they call visitation rights. So once you are able to go to the courts and the judge can deem, they'll send you do a DNA test, and once it's proven that the child is yours, then the court will order by law that you have visitation rights to that child. So for me, there's never an excuse for a father to be absent in their child's life. For me, that is an absolute no. That is an absolute no. But
Wow.
again, circumstances arise, and like I say, everybody don't have the resolve, and some fathers give up and they walk away.
I mean, you brought out some big rock facts. That's what I call that. I deem them to be facts that as a father, it is your responsibility. You have to have the resolve. Like you said, you brought a life into the world. And so you have to be persistent, regardless of what stumbling blocks might be in your way, to ensure that you do not find yourself in that category of a fatherless, well, being an absentee father. But I mean, as you spoke about the fact, and that's an interesting point that you brought out with respect to single parents. When you go and you have a child outside of wedlock, and the child automatically, the mother has more rights, or the majority of the rights. You might be able to get visitation. You can get visitation, but it just caused me to think and reflect on the fact that men, both men and women, so I think it's twofold in terms of coming together to form these children. You got to be careful from a woman's perspective who you are mating with, in terms of a father, that if something happens with you. And well, first of all, go to the ideal way, which is marriage. All right. So let's start with that. We are on this show and we're talking about information. We talk about power and we talk about transformation. So we want to advocate the best way, which is the marriage way. Right. But let's say if you fall outside of that, because we know we're in a fallen world, then beyond that, you need to look at who you are dating. And if you're having an intimate relationship with that person, then there's always the possibility of a child or children. And you now need to select someone who would have the resolve, at least as far as possible. Think from that perspective. If you're a woman, like, would this individual remain within my child's life? That's number one. And then so that's a female that looking at it, and then you guys can comment on it. A female saying, will this be an individual that will remain in my child's life? And a male thinking from the perspective, I don't want to be a fatherless father. I want to be in my child's life. Will this woman be someone that would understand and appreciate that I do have a role, like we talk about? She has a role as mother, I have a role as father, and she would in no way impede my ability to have access to my child. What do you think about that? Agree, disagree? Is that wisdom, not wisdom? Any one of our guests?
It is wisdom, Miss Jackie. It is wisdom. And again, like I said, anytime when you go outside of the design, when you go see children as for husband and wife, and I had to learn that the hard way, is not children in a boyfriend and girlfriend thing.
No.
You understand? And you go outside of looking and assuming someone, because anyone could put on a front for you for about 6-7 months, and you may say, okay, this may be a good selection for me to have a child with, but at the end of the day, people change, right?
Right.
True colors begin to come out. But if you make a decision, if that woman is your wife, she can't do those things to you. It's the law will not. It's different. It's different when you're married. So the key thing in all of this is have children with your wife.
Yep. Choose wisely.
Yes.
The power of choice. And we're giving you information. So I mean, many of you on the show have shared your lives, and you're now using your life as a life book. So I'm appealing to those that are listening to us, whether you're locally here in Nassau, any of the islands of the Bahamas, or, you know, this show, it goes around the world. It's amazing how much feedback we receive. So here it is, persons on the show using their life as a life book, to say, hey, I look through the pages of my life, and you can now make sound decision, wise decision, to ensure that if you find yourself in this situation, so if you're in a situation where you are one of those, where you're being you're a fatherless child, there is help through mentorship, reach out. And if you are a father, if you are in that category of being absent, and you're an absentee father, there's still hope. Your child is alive, even if that child is an adult. Is an opportunity to reach out and connect. I'll just share with you a story. Now, this is a real fresh story I just heard. I thought it was a very interesting story last night. A gentleman, a good, fine gentleman, spoke about the fact that after over 20 years, I think it's even 30 years, he just discovered that he had a daughter, a daughter. And he wasn't present in this young lady. So, she's now a woman. But he felt something, he just felt this, hit this urge and this desire to go and search her out and connect. And so now, for the first time in 30, could you imagine that, 30 something years, he is connecting with his daughter, and they're getting to know each other. The siblings have already connected and have already gone out, and amazing. Even though she's a woman, she still desire to have this connection with her father. Like we've said on the show, it's like a degree of security, identity, and all that good stuff. So as he shared the joys of this connection, you could see the sparkle in his eyes. And I thought that was one of those kind of very rich stories or experiences that I didn't think I would be sharing it on the show today, but I'm glad to that he saw fit to share it with us, and so that I can share it with the viewing audience. So, like I said, we want to encourage you. Knowledge is power. If you find yourself in that kind of situation where, like I said, your child can be an adult, please still reach out and connect. That child needs you. So, a word to the wise. So they're saying that in reading, doing a little bit of research, they're saying that, these children, sometimes we think that it's just when they're, in their childhood, they feel the impact. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the impact. We'll go more into that in terms of absentee fathers. But they're saying that these children, a lot of children grow into men, and they experience the impact of their fathers not being present. They experience it for a lifetime. They say these are the children, they're called a lot of times left behind children. These children are less likely to attend college. These children have behavioral problems, and it's a whole list of different problems that they have, and we're going to dive into that. But just one of those I want to linger a little bit longer on just in this moment is this whole thing about identity, because under that big rock, identity, having an identity, that's like having a compass to help steer you and help to guide you. And I think a lot of time our men, our boys are doing, all kinds of crazy things because they missing that compass. That's number one. They don't have that compass to guide them. And so sometimes we need to be a little bit more patient in understanding and appreciating that, especially when we go into our schools. We talk about the boys, and, we like to say the boys don't have no direction, but the girls are a little bit more focused. But we need to understand that many of those boys, so the girls would have the mother in the home, but the boys often don't have that male figure missing, and hence they don't have that compass as readily as they should. And when that happens, so this is where I want to linger, rage. Let's talk a little bit about rage, because I don't think you see all the gang violence as we merge that whole subject in with absentee father. A lot of what exists within our boys, They can't resolve conflict. There's rage at the foundation. Could our guest talk a little bit about that rage, whether you felt rage, and whether you think that that might be what a lot of the persons that are in gang, our young men, are experiencing, and hence they go to the gangs trying to find love there. But the problem first starts with rage. Speak a little bit about that, please. Go right ahead, Denver.
Yeah, you mentioned something, Jackie, about rage. When you're talking about our young men, one of the things I noticed from me going into the prison and talking this into Simpson Pen, Jackie, to our young men, as I discover, Dave and the rest of them could allude to this, that we always ask the question, Jackie, how many of the young men fathers were in their lives and or was not in their lives? And when we ask that question, Jackie, and we in a room of about 20 or more, almost 80% of the young men will put up their hand and say their fathers were absent in their life. And then I had an opportunity to speak to a couple of young men, and I asked them, we will have a candid conversation, and the conversation would be going on fine, Jackie. And as soon as I bring up the father, it's like they change.
Wow.
A rage came up. It's like they don't want to hear, but no daddy, they don't want, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So what that indicates to me, that there is something internal that took place.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Why is this young man so angry? I don't want to see him. If I see him, I want to kill him, shoot him. Something took place that affect that young individual. You see, and he's holding it against his father, and maybe because he wasn't around, or probably he saw his father mistreat his mother, or he's being abused at an early age. So these are some of the indicators that our young men, some of them, feel towards their father. They don't want to have nothing to do with him. They don't even want you even mention his name. And that's probably how the rage came up, because something took place in their life and they never forget it. And maybe some of them are gonna hold on to that until they get to their grave. So that's probably a part of it, where the rage come from. They saw their father done some things, maybe to them, maybe to their mother, and they haven't forgive him and they haven't forget it.
Great observation. And I think just to put in a plug here for parents who might be listening to the show and can see this rage exhibited in their children. And some of them have the rage from a very early age, like you said, very early age. And then it just increases with time, going into those teenage years when they really, really need direction. That if you find your child in that kind of situation, now is the time to get help. I know we like to turn, as a people, sometimes we like to turn a blind eyes, right? Turn a blind eyes. And in turning a blind eyes, most often, almost 100% of the time, the problem does not go away. The problem grows bigger. And I know sometimes we have counseling, some persons have, I'm so glad to see with the pandemic, one of the good things that came out of it was an understanding and respect for the need for counseling when we have, I think in the Bahamas, I think it happened around the world, counseling and mentorship when we see our children faced with, or when our people are faced with mental or emotional challenges. Now, I remember on our last shows, I can't remember who shared about the power of mentorship. let's talk a little bit about mentorship for both of our guests. Tell us about some of the persons who are one or two persons who played a major role in terms of turning a life around.
Well, I like to first give thanks to the church, because many times the church don't get the credit as to what they does, because most of the times their work is not about receiving personal glory, but they goes out in the vineyard to help people. And the Church of God of Prophecy with Commonwealth Mission Baptist Church, Pastor Arnold Josie, Shelton Beneby, and Bishop Ewan Hannah, you know, helped my life from the streets. And a police officer who is dead and gone now, the late David Mark Ford, you know, and I was destined for jail and destined for prison, but they reach out and give me hope, and they help me by talking to me and by steering me in a different direction. I believe that, guess what, you know, if we have more males, you know, to just be a help and encouragement to one fatherless or one struggling young male, can make a whole heap of difference in their life. Continue to work what you are doing out there, because I am a product that hope is real.
I would say for me, that it was Mr. David Markfall, the same guy that Mr. Burrows had referenced. He's now passed and gone. He was a police officer. So he would have started the Elizabeth Estates Young Men's Club. And I could remember so vividly, the way he talked to us, it was just so much passion. And you could see the love in his eyes. And like I say, nobody in Elizabeth Estate wanted to touch us. You know, people wasn't into us. People, you know, trying to stay away from the young men in the community because the path that we was on and the trajectory. But he brought us to his house in the back of his yard. It was where we started to have our meetings. And I always remember when it was meeting day. I remember the excitement. Like it was something to look forward to. I never had never something to look forward to in regards to, you know, things like that. And then it was new. And I will never forget, you know, we had our election of officers. So we had a president, vice president, you know, the first time I ever heard sergeant at arms, you know, we didn't know what none of those things was, you know, but he made us to understand these are how organizations work. These are how they are run. And I remember becoming the treasurer of the club. I was elected as treasurer. And, you know, it made me feel important. You know, I'm you know, like a treasurer. You know, like I never thought I could be I mean, that's in my mind. You know, I was saying, boy, I in charge of the money, you know, but again, and we were able to do things as a club. So what it did for me was that it exposed me and it opened up my eyes. I'll never forget we had a cookout because we went to Miami to play in a basketball game. And I remember helping to organize it with the board, and you know, we pulled that off and we went away, had such a good time, and we came back, and you know that it was just beautiful. So for me, I would say, you know, the words of Corporal David Markfall, God rest his soul, was the very first time in my young life at that point that I would have seen anything different in that regards other than criminality.
Wow, amazing. Both of you giving kudos to the same person. So I want to say a shout out, but I know I have some McFalls who are my really, really good friends. One of my best friends is married actually to a McFall. So shout out to the family of David McFall playing such a crucial role in the lives of young men everywhere. So I'm gonna give when they're in, I mean the time goes so swiftly. I'm gonna give our audience an opportunity. Anybody in the Zoom room on Facebook would like to ask our guest a question. I know we had some questions from last week. Anyone would like to at this time unmute your mic and ask your question. Go right ahead, please. Anyone in the room would like to ask a question? Okay, let me see. There's a question in the chat. Are there any current statistics on the men in prison today without fathers? I think okay, so David answered. He said in a survey of 100 men in prison, 80% responded that they did not grow up with a father. Okay, Dave. Dave, and happy birthday to Dave. Dave celebrated a birthday yesterday. So I'm sending shout out on behalf of Transforming Lives to the one and only Mr. David Williams. I hope you had an amazing day. Let's see if there's any other. Did I miss any other question in the chat? As we continue this conversation, please feel free to jump right in. Let's see if I miss anyone else. Okay. All right. So let's continue the conversation for just a tad bit longer. Dave, what about you? Any question out there before I continue? All right. We'll continue with the conversation.
Okay.
Dave, that's you, Dave?
Yes, no, I don't have no questions, no.
Okay. Let's continue with the conversation. All right. So we spoke a little bit about rage and school drop out. We mentioned those two factors. Let's talk a bit about self-control, behavioral issue, and impulsive. The statistic says that children, right, who has experienced, not all, some of them, they are exposed to impulsive behaviors. They lack self-control. Why do you think that this might be the reality, I guess, in terms of lacking self-control? How does a father assist a child? Because I know a lot of boys, young men talk about the fact that, you know, growing up with their mommy, like, oh my goodness, it's just women making noise in their head all the time, you know, mommy just making noise. That's what they refer to it. Talk a little bit about in terms of the power of a male's voice in the home, in terms of assisting a male child with self-control. Any one of our guests or both of our guests?
I think in our minds, as a male growing up in the home, but like I said, I never had a father, so I mean, not in the home, but so for me, I have to reference with my kids now. I have two daughters, right? Their mother can talk to them, but there's a different response when I talk, right? So I don't know if it's the baritone, if it's the voice, the bass, or whatever. So I can only imagine that fathers just by nature, you know, and you watch like I watch shows, animal shows, and you know, human beings, we replicate the animals in a lot of ways also. And you watch the lion. When a lion roars, he commands the attention. of everybody that's within that parameter that can hear him. So I think for young men with fathers, I think it's consequences. My kids know with me, it's consequences when I talk. So it ain't no long talk, right? So for most young men like me, who would have not grown up in that environment where the male was in the home, your mother's was okay. I was telling someone today, I remember my mother, she used to get beaten, but by the time I hit 13 years old, and she would say, oh, we'll go get the belt so I could beat you because you do something wrong. And she hit me once and I grabbed that belt and I just look at her and laugh and shake my head because, like, what you doing? You can't beat me no more. I grabbed the belt and, oh, come here, boy, this and that. And by the time as I slip out the hose, I jump the fence, I gone, But again, I may not have been able to do that had that been a male. I may not have been able to get away with that. So at a certain point, I as a man, he hit me, I laughing, I ain't really feeling that, you know what I mean? So it's definitely, I can imagine that has a big part to do with it.
Our other guest, care to share?
Well, most definitely, whenever a father is in the home, the children then tends to understand that what they could get away with mommy, they can't get away with daddy, because daddy operates with authority, and I see that with my kids, and I see that with other my friends, them get kids. It's so a male figure is so important. And this is one of the challenges we have also in our schools, because I worked with the Ministry of Social Service for 7 years as a community liaison officer. And one of the challenges we have in our schools is that, not saying that women can't do a good job, but there is an imbalance of male presence in our schools. And that is one of the challenges in our schools. It's like 5% of the teachers, administrators is females. And the females only can do so much. When I was growing up, at El Lebion, we had our principal was Mr. Hadley. And, my brother Kendrick Dean will know how Mr. Hadley go. We had Mr. Hadley was the principal, Mr. Ritchie was the vice principal, and Mr. Demerit was the senior master. So you had males, strong. And I believe that's something we have to do in our educational system. We need to make the salaries attractive. This is something what I found out is a lot of males leave the teaching field. Salaries need to be more attractive, more males to be inside school to particularly help the issues that the young males in schools. Because like what Ken said, he could hold the belt and then run. But I guarantee you, if his father was dealing with him as, I guess, with 13, he wasn't gonna hold the belt. I'd be sure. He wasn't gonna run over no fence.
Great
Yeah,
observation.
also
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Jackie, I agree with what my brothers are saying too, and we talking about self-control. Sometimes when you look at self-control, it could be equated to mental health issues amongst the child, what the child has experienced in the home, whether it be abuse from the father or abuse from the mother, and that can play a part in that too when we talk about self-control. Like my brother said, that is something about a father presence in a child's life. I know that not even their presence in a child's life, I can remember with me, I was not at home, and my fiance at the time was telling me something about, I think, what our son did or something. And she passed the phone to me, to me. And I told her, put him on the phone. And I was a long distance away. And just because of my voice, it changed the whole changed the whole ball game of it, because he recognized the power of, and like Apple said, the authority that the Father carries within us. I think that God wire us like that. That's in our DNA. A kid can be acting up and the mother will be trying to correct it, and all of a sudden, all she has to say, "I'm gonna tell your daddy," and the child would straighten up. So that's a part of our DNA that we were wired, that is in us. When it comes to, we can do that. We have authority. The kid understand that. When they hear daddy talk, they know that is serious business.
Great points made. Great points. I can relate to the one with children that when they reach for a woman, when a male child reaches a certain age. I have twin sons, and I could remember my sons probably at the age of 12. I'm short and they're extremely tall like their dad. And I remember that I stopped beating them at age 12, actually, because they did just that. I was like, this makes no sense. They held the belt, and that was so frustrating. I know a lot of women can relate to that. That was so, I was shocked, like 12. And then you realize, okay, there got to be a different way. So that's where you had to resort, upgrade those skills. And so for the ladies out there, definitely, I want to encourage you to keep those fathers or father figures in the lives of your children, especially the male, because they need the support, the direction of their fathers. You only do it to your own detriment. So I know that we're almost near the time. It's 5 o'clock. I'm just going to give Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you. 5:03. It was really, really great having this exchange. And I know it's soon time for us to come off the air. So I turn the program back over to the one and only David Williams.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Thank those of you for taking the opportunity to listen to us today. Truly, it's a blessing as we end this program. You're listening to the program Transforming Lives on Global 99.5, Cable TV 974. We here every Sunday afternoon, 4 to 5, live. On this program, we seek to share information about the transformation that takes place in the lives of individuals. But we recognize that the greatest transformation that can take place, it is when one surrenders and commits his life to Jesus Christ, who alone gives him or her the eternal life, and they can have that now. And so with that, I want to say to you, folks, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a wonderful Sunday, and we'll see you same time, same place, same station. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Bye.